Hello and welcome to this Astranti video where we'll be looking at the student survey response for the strategic case study exam in February 2022. So what we're looking at in this video are the students that we surveyed who sat the strategic case study exam in February of this year in 2022. That was for the Pixlwizz pre-scene. And essentially we send out this survey to a mixture of some of our own students and some students that aren't our own students who didn't sit the course with us. And they always provide us really great feedback about what they found difficult, what they found easy, what they would have spent more time on, what they should have spent less time on. So what we're going to do in this video is go through some of the more insightful feedback to see if it can help you in your preparation for the exam. So starting with exam difficulty, we asked the students overall, how difficult did they find the exam compared to their expectations? So, whatever they expected it to be, how was it in reality? And as you can see, the majority, 61%, found the exam about as difficult as they expected it to be, or potentially even easier. Whereas around 40% actually found it more difficult. Now, this ratio is identical whether you count all students that we asked or if you just focus on the Astranti students. This seems to be roughly the breakdown. It's difficult to prepare students. Okay, so looking at that 40%, 2 in 5 students who, of the students we surveyed at least, who sat the exam found it more difficult than they expected. So, even if they had been on the course, we kind of prepared them. We do all sorts of things to help them prepare. This is a difficult exam. And if you don't know that going in, you're going to be shocked. So a key question we ask these students as well is what went well in the exam? And in terms of looking at this data, we break it down into the two groups. So those who found it as expected or easier, or those who found it more difficult than expected. And the key areas or the key categories that we question them on is question interpretation. So can they understand what they're being asked to do? Can they identify the requirement? Time management, how well are they doing in terms of answering the question in the allocated time? Theory knowledge, how comfortable do they feel with their knowledge of the theory so that it can be applied? Industry examples. Are you showing wider industry knowledge? Pre-scene application. How well does your understanding of the pre-scene help you to give well-applied answers to the scenario? Planning and structure. So, are you using planning to help structure your response and have a better overall answer? Practicing mock exams under mock conditions, of course, and then typing speed, practicing, typing as quickly as possible. And as you can see here, the ones that stand out are time management and theory knowledge. Okay, and you can see that almost a third of students said that time management went well for them. A third said that theory knowledge went well for them. And then slightly behind at 25%, 26%, said that the planning and structure aspects went well for them. Okay, and then question interpretation at the top, sort of in 4th place as the thing that went well. Now, remember, these are out of 100, obviously out of 100%. So they're actually comparing it to that fairly low in the minority. But taking this at face value as it is, these are the things that students think went well for them in the exam. Now, if we focus more on how that breaks down between the two groups, those who found it as expected or easier and those who found it more difficult, it's quite good to compare the differences here. So the first one that stands out here is time management. Obviously, the big blue line here, 42% of students who found it as expected or easier thought that the time management went well for them. Only a smaller percentage of those who found it difficult think that that went well for them. Another interesting one is planning and structure. You can see that actually the ones that found it more difficult were a bigger proportion of those actually think that the planning went well for them. So that's not what they found difficult necessarily. Same goes for question interpretation. Though they found the exam difficult, question interpretation perhaps wasn't the thing that they struggled with. and it's more likely going to be these things that have 0% that they struggle with. But we'll wait until we look at what went poorly, which is in the next slide. So what could have gone better during the exam? This is what we asked the students. And interestingly, you can see it's the same few areas that are coming up here. So as I mentioned before, these percentages are out of 100, of course. And so if we go back to 2 slides, you can see this was 32%, or roughly a third for each of those, and a quarter for planning and structure. That went well. In this case, it's 25% for each. So actually smaller, fewer compared to what went well, but still significant areas. So that's telling you that things like time management, knowledge of theory, planning and structure, these are the things that students can trip up on if they're not prepared for. Now, it's not too difficult to prepare for these things, but if you haven't, they are the things that you might struggle on. So how does this break down? Well, again, the interesting thing to look at are the ones where there is a big difference. So time management. What could have gone better? Well, interestingly, it's the group that who found the exam as expected or easier. A bigger proportion of them thought that time management could have gone better. Now, there is an element in that group. They always want to be able to write more, and so they simply wish that they had more time to write better responses. They're also aware that it is a difficult part of this exam. They went into the exam expecting it to be difficult. It was as difficult as expected, and they struggle with time management, knowing full well that it's a thing that is quite difficult about the exam. And of those who found it more difficult, they struggled with planning and structure, and they struggled with theory knowledge, time management, and to some extent, question interpretation. Okay. We also asked the students what they would spend more time on if they could have their time again. And again, the thing sticking out here is theory knowledge. So making sure you know the syllabus well enough to apply it, and mock practice. Over 50% in both cases here of students wish they had done more mock practice. Coming up in sort of third place, planning and structure, making sure you practice planning and structuring your answers. And then at the top, time management. The way this breaks down, the ones that found it more difficult really wish, a big proportion of those wish they had spent more time revising key theory so that they can apply that they don't find that topics come up that they are unprepared for. Interestingly, mock practice, even those who found the exam as expected, wish they had spent more time doing mocks, and that also holds true for those who found it more difficult. Okay, and we also asked what they would have spent less time on, and as usual, the standout here is industry examples. Now, that's not to say that industry examples aren't important. Industry revision, understanding the industry is good, and learning those industry examples is an easy way to get more marks, but it's certainly not something you should be spending a great deal of time on. And in terms of prioritizing things, it is lower down in the list than something like theory knowledge, pre-scene application, or mock practice. So that, as usual, comes out in the high. Pre-scene application coming out in joint second with typing speed. Typing speed is probably most people's typing speed is good enough as it is, so it's not something to spend too much time improving. Pre-scene application is important. People, again, can spend too much time on it though, and too much time analysing the pre-scene. You should analyse the pre-scene, but you should only do it to the extent to which you understand the company well and can give good, robust answers in line with your understanding of the pre-scene company. And the way this breaks down, those who found it difficult really were perhaps spending too much time learning industry examples and too much time developing their typing speed, whereas what they should have been focusing on perhaps was planning and structure, mock exam practice, theory knowledge, and time management. Okay, and we also got some student quotes, which I'd like to share with you. So first of all, relating to the industry, someone did their own industry research. They ended up spending a lot of time reading irrelevant topics. So in that case, that's someone that spent too much time learning about the industry. Okay, and as we say, that's not your top priority. That's something to do to fill out your knowledge, and it's good to show the examiner that you have wider industry knowledge, but it's not something you should spend a great deal of time on. Second quote, watch the exam technique videos carefully, referring to the Astranti exam technique video series that helps you to develop your exam technique, improving things like writing style, question interpretation, planning your answers, lots of things like that. So the student recommending the exam technique videos to help with those particular things. Also, don't ignore any theory when you revise, because anything can come up and it's always the one you're weakest at. Isn't that always the way? Key thing for the strategic case study, of course, is less focus on the technical, more focus on strategic thinking, and greater understanding of the business and wider industry. So this strategic thinking, greater understanding of the business, that's the pre-scene analysis. That's why that's important. So you can focus on not just the technical, but showing your business acumen. The wider industry is important to show knowledge of that as well. But as we said, don't make that your priority. Okay, this person says that it's important to make sure you have sound knowledge of the theory, particularly if you took the F3, P3 or E3 exams a long time ago. You certainly need to brush up on it. You're not necessarily examined on your knowledge of that theory, but a lot of that theory can be utilized to give good answers in the case study exam. And they recommend looking at previous questions and mocks to see how questions are asked, because that gives you an idea of how you're going to be examined on those topics. And then finally, perhaps the best bit of advice a student can give, or anyone can give, a lot of mock exam practice. So sit as many mock exams as you can. It's going to be the best way to practice your exam, applying your exam technique, practice writing answers and pulling it all together. And if you can practice that several times before the real exam, it puts you in a much better position when the day finally comes. So the key lessons there, don't expect it to be easy. Okay, it's a difficult exam, and even if you expect it to be difficult, it's probably, it either is going to be difficult or it's going to be more difficult than you expect. Time management, of course, and planning are essential. Those are the two things that came up again and again. Managing your time well, making sure you get enough down in the time available is key, and planning is a technique to really help you do that. If upfront planning, make sure that you've got a logical structure to your question or to your answer, but it also means that once the planning is over, you can focus on writing as much as you can, having done a lot of the hard work upfront in the plan. Do as many mocks as you can fit in, as I just mentioned. It's just good practice. If you can, get your mocks marked by a marker. They can give you personalized feedback to help you improve and get better before the exam. Use the industry pack wisely. It's a good tool, but shouldn't be the top of your list, and don't spend too much time on it. You're really just using it to learn the industry paragraphs and how you can easily apply those in your exam, showing the examiner you have that wider industry knowledge. And again, a very important point is that theory is important. You need to know it, so do brush up if it's been a while, but the key is application to the new scenarios. Can you utilize and use that theory to help you give better answers? Okay, and just to finish up then, I'll tell you a little bit about our case study courses, and it's true for strategic right the way down to operational. We have on our courses a whole range of things, including the exam technique series, which I've already mentioned. The exam technique series takes you through how to develop a winning exam technique, right the way from understanding your role, understanding the requirements, properly answering the question, having a direct answer style, improving your writing style, writing more clearly, planning, how to plan your answer and structure your answers, and much more besides. It's really valuable series. The students often find or comment that this is the thing that really helps them to improve and prepare for the case study. On top of that, we have the theory revision series, which is the key topics from the strategic syllabus that you should revise, because they're the things that come up in the strategic case study exam again and again. The pre-scene analysis is a set of several hours of videos where we go through the pre-scene, analyzing every aspect of it, coming up with a strategy and sort of evaluating the strategy of the company and suggesting the most likely exam issues based on a reading of the pre-scene. Pre-scene The industry analysis is an analysis of the wider industry. The value there is that we've done the analysis for you, so you don't have to spend lots of time going around on the web finding out the key things. You can read through the pack, learn about the industry, and importantly, there are 25 applied examples in that pack that are real-world industry scenarios that you can take and learn about the paragraphs for and apply in your exam. Mock exams are, practice exams. We have 5 of them, and you can get them marked. And like I said before, highly recommend doing that. Getting personalized marking and feedback from a marker is a great way to improve. On top of that, we have generic question packs. So if you've done all the mock exams, or actually probably before you even attempt the mock exams, you can practice generic questions. They're not based on the pre-scene, but they are exam style questions. So you can just practice applying your exam technique. Finally, we have a range of masterclasses, starting with Masterclass 1, which is a live pre-scene analysis, through to Masterclass 2, which is about developing exam technique. And then the final Masterclass, Masterclass 3, right before the exam, is about exam revision and learning and applying everything we've learned so far on the course. All of that is guaranteed with our pass guarantee. So if you complete the requirements of the pass guarantee, then you will get the entire course again for free if for some reason you do not pass. Okay, that's all from me. Thanks for watching. I hope that video was useful to you, and best of luck in your exams.